Chris, earlier you mentioned about the district attorney. I spoke with Tony Rackauckas earlier about this case. Here is part of my interview with the Orange County District Attorney. You've heard the complaints from the public. Some are saying the fix is in, that the DA is not going to be proactive. There are differing accounts as to when you got this case. Your office says that you received the case about 2 days after the incident. Police are saying that they forwarded this to you only a couple of hours after the incident.
We need to wait until we're asked to investigate. They asked us on the 5th, they asked us on the 7th to investigate, and we immediately began the investigation at that point.
And between then and now, have you spoken with any of the police officers involved?
As far as whether or not they've talked to each and every police officer who might have been involved in the incident, no, not each one, but certainly many of the police officers who were involved or closely aligned with the circumstances.
Why not release the videos to the concerned public?
This is a item that we have that's a major investigative tool that we have at this point, and so it's not something that we would normally do. We wouldn't release a video of the incident before everything's in. So we need to have our witnesses make their statements beforehand. If charges are filed, of course, then it would be a public trial. Everything would be public. All of the evidence and everything that we use to consider and to bring charges would become public. And if that doesn't happen, if charges are not brought, I will release a very detailed explanation as to all of the circumstances and the law and the reasons.
Has your office ever prosecuted a police officer, a law enforcement officer, for a shooting death or a custodial death?
During the time that I've been the district attorney, my office has not prosecuted a police officer for a shooting by a police officer resulting in a death. As far as a custodial death, we had a circumstance with a beating death that took place in the jail. We did a major investigation and report on all of the details of that, and there were some prosecutions that came as a result of that, but no police officers were charged with homicide as a result of that.
There are reports circulating that the police officers involved in the beating death were actually able to see the video prior to them writing their police report. Do you know anything about that?
Generally speaking, we prefer that our witnesses, whether they be lay witnesses or police witnesses, don't view a video of the scene or the circumstances, and then just give us their report. But whether or not they did here, I don't personally know. I know they did have that in their possession.
Chris, with Fullerton's Future, quick reaction on that interview.
My reaction is thank God for First Amendment rights. I do not have faith that these governmental agencies will do their best for exposing the truth without the scrutiny of blogs and aggressive media. I just hear him posturing to circle the wagons and protect their own. I'm not feeling good about what I just heard.
Bruce, what about you?
I've been interested in accelerating the results of investigations throughout the course of this, and it's imperative, I believe, that videotape be made public at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. The public's right to know what really occurred here is paramount.
Ron, this is your district attorney speaking out.
Yeah, I think it's pretty pathetic what he's saying.
What specifically?
Well, again, it sounds like he has no intentions at all of filing charges, and he's setting up the public to prepare to accept this. What I need to do is really ask of the public to put a lot of pressure on his office. What I've done thus far with the city council, the police department, and one-on-one with the chief in a closed door, I'm going to do the same thing with the DA. I'm going to request a one-on-one with the district attorney myself.
Thank you. There is a bigger issue here, of course. I spoke earlier with Jim Palmer, the executive director of the Orange County Rescue Mission. His organization has been dealing with the homeless population for nearly 50 years. Here's part of that interview. How is and how has been the relationship between cops and homeless in this county?
We're overall very lucky that law enforcement spends time in educating themselves on homeless situations, on domestic abuse situations, on mental health situations. But all departments don't have the resource or maybe the focus to do that.
Having said that then, what went wrong with these cops?
Well, the challenge you see in Fullerton is a number of police officers trying to subdue a very small person that's having a lot of issues. And I think from what we hear is the community is very upset that why so many police officers had to literally physically put a person down. We won't know the results until later, but I can tell you that we don't see that happen too often in the police departments that invest a lot of energy into educating their officers on how to deal with these individuals in our society that there doesn't seem to be a home for, in a sense.
Going forward, what can the police do, or what can your organization do working with police so this never happens again?
Well, to attack this particular situation, you're dealing with both mental health issues and homelessness issues. So becoming educated and being able to set up policies and procedures that support the police in dealing with these situations. The real tragedy in our community is we all call the police department to be social workers. I was on a recent ride-along, and all 6 calls we went on were social work kind of calls. So we really need to give the resources these officers need and the training they need to understand how to deal with this. And as communities, the more we can each do for our neighbor, I think the better off we are.
Neighbor helping neighbor. We continue with our discussion on the Kelly Thomas death. Now joining Ron Thomas and Bruce Whitaker is Dr. Gustavo Alva, a psychiatrist who specializes in schizophrenia. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Quite the contrary. Thank you for having me here.
I offer the question to you. Obviously, mental illness is a tremendous component both in Kelly and many of the homeless. Talk about schizophrenia and the role it plays.
Well, first and foremost, my condolences, because this truly is a tragic story that encompasses a serious problem that we face in our communities. Really a lack of an understanding of serious mental conditions, medical problems that have treatments and have ways of actually being countered is really what's at play here. When we talk about somebody suffering from a medical condition and then subsequently a misidentification of certain things and then subsequently a lashing out onto certain behaviors is a great example of where we need to have greater sensitivity, greater education, and a greater understanding about many of the medical problems that we face right now.
Doctor, I'm told that these officers need at least 16 hours of a minimum requirement in mental health training, if you will, as they deal with these homeless folks. The police department is not telling me whether these officers involved in the beating had that training. How important is this training, or is it simply just a panacea?
Well, it's critical. I think that many of the things that, for example, the Orange County Medical Association, the Orange County Psychiatric Society have attempted to do is really to create educational programs for, again, governmental agencies and, again, the local public for a greater understanding of things like schizophrenia, for example. If you've got somebody that's homeless, that could be as a consequence of a serious mental condition that brings about certain problems in that individual being able to figure out whether something's real or not.
Well, quickly, we can't solve the world's problems, but what do you say to the police then who did this? What is the answer when you deal with mental illness, which is such a grave component of this?
First and foremost, not vilifying mental conditions, and then subsequently not jumping onto situations that could actually be harnessed or could actually be tempered down through an appropriate approach. So having a solid backdrop in regards to how to handle situations that might be escalating rather than jumping on and actually utilizing physical force.
Ron, we're running low on time. Wasn't there anything, and I almost rhetorically say this, that could have been done for your son? Obviously, he's diagnosed early with schizophrenia. He showed signs early on as a young man. You probably went to Herculean efforts to try to help this person.
Absolutely. For years and years and years, we've always helped him. In and out of boarding cares. He's had his medication. He would be doing fine. And it was always, Dad, I feel fine. I don't need the medication. Well, that's the vicious cycle. It's like, well, you're feeling fine because of the medication. And then they walk. And they're free citizens of the United States. There's nothing else you can do, and it's heartbreaking. But years of trying to help him.
We know what the police did not do. We know what society did not do, if in fact it fails the homeless and the mentally ill, which I suppose it does, to be honest, let's be fair. In fairness, what did you possibly not do as a father trying to help your son?
I really don't know. I mean, I went to such length as I would get a call that he was in a park in Yorba Linda. I drove and got him. I took him to a lockup facility in Santa Ana, a psychiatric facility. I physically, as his conservator at the time, I could do this. I physically had to put him in an arm hold and get him through the door into a lockup facility. I mean, that's tough love, and people are always, where was the dad? They just don't know. They just don't know.
I don't know what to say except we do wish you the best, most definitely. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org and clicking on Inside OC. My guests have been Ron Thomas, Bruce Whitaker, Chris Thompson, and Gustavo Alva. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again Inside OC.